Hello, and welcome to the Ask a Leader track, People Helping People, a culture focused on members and community. If any of you are looking for a different session or topic, please use the track buttons below to navigate throughout the event. For those of you who are attending this session, my name is Solynn McCurdy, and I have the distinct pleasure of being Senior Vice President of Social Impact with BECU. And I'm honored to moderate this session that you all are tuning into. So thanks for joining us. Um, for this session in particular, you're going to hear from two of our senior leaders who I deeply admire, who, in my opinion, truly represent the heart and soul of the credit union. We'll start with some brief introductions, and throughout the conversation, I'll ask each of our hosts to share a bit about their areas of focus, and then we'll get right into some of the questions. Also, just want to call out the fact that throughout this discussion, you can use the chat feature on the right side of the page and submit questions, which we will address and answer as many as we can later on in this discussion. So with that, if everyone is set to go, Melanie, why don't you start and introduce yourself?
Great. Thanks so much, Solynn. Hello and welcome. I'm Eleni Walsh, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. I started my career at BECU 32 years ago. It's hard to believe. And today I'm responsible for BECU's overall people strategy, including diversity, equity, and inclusion, and overseeing our administration areas, such as real estate and facilities operations, ATM, and deposit operations. Tom?
Thanks, Melanie. Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Tom Berquist, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here at BECU. I have been with BECU for not quite as long as Melanie, but 27 years, and I'm responsible for BECU's marketing, communications, our social impact efforts, which Solynn helps lead, our strategy planning, and strategy planning for the entire co-op. Solynn, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks.
Melanie and Tom, thank you for joining us and taking time, both from the pleasure of your homes. Hopefully, all of you are joining us and able to attend the State of the Credit Union session earlier. Hopefully, you gained something from that. And as you know, Melanie and Tom, 2020 last year was certainly quite a year, and both of you have led efforts that really made quite a difference, right? And those differences being for not only our members, but for our employees and communities. So while we don't have time to cover all the significant highlights of this past year, from your areas of the credit union, are there maybe one or two specific things that really stand out to each of you, or things that maybe you would be particularly proud of when we think about what has happened in the past year? Melanie, why don't we start with you, and then we can kind of see where this goes.
Great. Thanks, Solynn. Maybe it's hard to choose just a couple, but I'll do my best. So a couple of highlights include just how incredible our team members were in pivoting quickly and continuously to a new way of working and taking care of members and employees when really they needed it most. People helping people was really stronger than ever in 2020, and just incredibly inspiring to see employees navigate working remotely for the first time and finding ways to stay connected to one another as well. Working in new roles to support member programs like PPP and creating new pay programs for our employees to support the needs that our employees had throughout 2020. So, in a difficult year, our team members really stepped up and made a difference for each other and our members and our community. I would also say that, as the country wrestled with racial and social reckoning, BECU put a renewed energy behind our employee DEI program called BUILD, Belonging, Inclusion, and Leveraging Differences. And our commitment to becoming a more inclusive credit union. As Jackie mentioned earlier in the State of the Credit Union, we started a journey that involved listening and learning and really taking meaningful action. Over 1,500 employees participated in listening and learning sessions, which were humbling enlightening and inspiring. So really some silver linings with 2020. Tom, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. I'm going to try to maybe squeeze in a few more than two, but as we've talked, 2020 was such a challenging year, and we really looked at how BECU could best support our communities really during two pandemics, the COVID and the systemic racism. And when I think about 2020, words like flexibility, resourcefulness, listening very deeply, and learning, and a lot of resolve are words that I'd use to describe 2020. You see on the chart there, your cooperative invested $6.4 million into the communities where you live. Most of that, or a lot of that, goes towards efforts that are directly aligned with our purpose around financial well-being. But there are stories behind that, behind all those dollars, individual stories that are really important. For example, the pandemic put significant stress on many of our nonprofit partners. And by listening to what their immediate needs were, we allowed them a lot of flexibility in how they used the grant dollars we provided them. One example is we provide a lot of support to colleges so kids can get on the right track financially while they're in school. And we allowed colleges and universities to redirect some of those funds for those programs to provide emergency grants to students so they could simply just stay in school. And I was also extremely proud of the work we did to establish the Black Community Development Project, which you heard about in the opening comments from Solynn. That is a significant step forward for BECU in terms of how we are going to look at our giving through a lens of equity and financial equity. So at the intersection of our purpose and equity is where we are going to be focusing a lot of our efforts. And lastly, we know that our members care about a lot of different causes that stretch way beyond financial well-being. And we were proud to continue our People Helping People Awards. As you may know, that program allows members to nominate and vote for their favorite nonprofits to receive grants from anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000. And we were able to do that program virtually last year. And through that program, we granted over $500,000 to member-nominated nonprofits. Solynn, I'll turn it back over to you. Thanks.
Great. Thank you both for sharing a snapshot of 2020. I think you both called out some really pivotal moments in time that matter to all of us and had a significant impact, not only for the credit union, but for our members and employees. And so let's kind of use this time to pivot to 2021 and think about your focus there. Kind of what is top of mind for you this year, even though we're just, I think, in quarter two and really getting excited. Like, what are you most excited about? What most is kind of pulling your attention and time right now? Melanie, again, why don't we start with you and see what sticks out?
Great, thanks, Solynn. Maybe a couple of areas to highlight include the work that we're doing to drive meaningful change to become more racially equitable and inclusive organization, from how we work together internally to the products and services that we offer, and how we connect to our communities. I would also say that returning to the office in 21 and that strategy, and for at least for the employees who have been working remotely, which is about 70% of our employees. And it's been a year since many of them have been in the office. And so this work will continue, obviously, to put the safety and well-being of our employees and members at the forefront. But we're looking forward to seeing everybody. Tom? How about you?
Thanks, Melanie. I am also looking forward to seeing our co-workers in person at hopefully some point this year. When I think about our community and financial health efforts, the things that stand out in 2021, I think there are three things. One, it's the financial health products and programs we're going to be launching. We hope to digitize our financial health check program, which is really designed to help members to take action to improve their financial well-being. For example, building emergency savings funds or paying down debt. We're also, as you heard in the opening comments, we're looking at a variety of new products, new savings tools and loans designed to help people to build credit. We're also going to continue to expand upon our marketing efforts or communication efforts, really to ensure members are aware of the steps that they can take to improve their financial well-being, regardless of their current financial situation. The other area I'm excited about is over the past few years, we've been expanding our efforts as it relates to affordable housing. And in 2021, we're going to take additional steps. In addition to the first-time homebuyer grant that you heard about, we have joined forces with other credit unions to create an affordable housing fund. And we're going to expand our commercial lending to allow us to help preserve and create new affordable housing. So I think there's several things in play here where BECU will play a bigger role on the affordable housing front. And then lastly, I think as we've talked about a couple of times here, we're going to continue to evolve our giving strategy and the work of the BECU Foundation. We see a significant opportunity for the BECU Foundation to take on more new and innovative work well beyond its past focus just on scholarships. We'll continue scholarships, but we think there's a much bigger role the foundation can play in our community efforts. So with that, I think I'm going to turn it back to Solynn.
Right. So again, thank you for sharing those examples. Both just appreciate your leadership in this really trying time and giving such compelling work, as we look forward. So right now, we're going to transition to the Q&A portion of this session. And my wonderful colleague, Sean, is definitely going to help out on this piece. There he is.
Hello.
Good to see you, my friend.
You too.
All right.
Check out the questions here.
Yeah, so just a reminder to the audience and the viewers here, you can continue to submit questions via the chat button on the right side. I think this is my right, on the right side of your screen. And Sean will try to feed those to us as best we can. And so, Sean, yes. I believe we had a few questions submitted leading up to the event, maybe even as late as this afternoon, as well as during the State of the Credit Union, right?
And we could start with one that was submitted earlier this week. And again, thanks to all our members for sending those questions our way. And then we'll get to another one from the Community Relations inbox. The one submitted earlier saying, how does BECU decide which nonprofits to support?
Great. Tom, do you want to take that one?
Could you repeat that question?
How does BECU decide which nonprofits to support?
I don't know if Tom is hearing you right now. So we could.
No. Yeah. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
So yeah. So the question, Tom, was how does BECU decide what nonprofits to support?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I think at a very high level, we are looking for organizations that have alignment to our purpose. And as you've heard many times tonight, that is all about improving folks' financial well-being. I think we also look for projects and nonprofits that are trying to tackle the whole problem. So it might be a collective impact work where they're bringing many nonprofits together, but also are they, for example, a great example is we work with a nonprofit up in Everett, and they not only are providing housing, they provide training for their residents, they also provide them with jobs. And on top of that, they just built a building that meets the living building standards. So this multifaceted approach is something that we also look for. I think the other piece is we really love partnerships where it's just not check writing. We want to understand how BECU can bring more capabilities to support that nonprofit. That could be by integrating our financial education programs into their service offerings. It could be offering some of our technical support, lending, marketing, anything we can do to support that nonprofit. So those, obviously in some programs, there's very specific criteria, but those I think are the kind of top level things we look for.
Okay. Here's another one that's coming from the inbox, the Community Relations inbox. How has BECU supported employees during COVID-19?
Melanie, that sounds like a good question for you to start with.
Sure, sounds great. Thanks for the question. We're committed to serving members while keeping employees safe. We've been closely monitoring and following CDC guidelines along with recommendations from local health officials to ensure that we're doing the right thing in support of the health and wellness of our employees, members, and our suppliers. We obviously continue to review practices regularly And maybe some things more specifically for employees, as the situation with COVID-19, continues to evolve. We're really proactive in communicating with employees on a regular basis, sharing updates and guidance, as well as getting information from them. What would be important, what's working, what's not working, and continually refining our practices to ensure their safety. As I mentioned earlier, about 70% of our employees are working remotely full-time, and so just really making sure that we're deploying new collaboration tools so that they can stay connected as well. We've introduced a couple of new programs like emergency pay for employees who've been impacted by COVID-19 as a result of school closures, other situations related to COVID-19, and providing other resources that are impactful for them in that moment. Also introduced essential pay early on to provide additional compensation or financial support for eligible employees in roles really just essential to serving our members and who have a job that require them to come into a BECU facility. And we're doing this still today. We also are providing employees with paid time off to assist with scheduling of vaccine appointments. And we're pleased to share that, and as you heard from Benson, we're pleased to share that we're not aware of any cases where transmissions of the virus occurred from employee to member or member to employee. So thanks for the question, appreciate it.
All right, back to and feel free to repeat this in case Tom doesn't hear me from the question here, but how do BECU's investment and lending policies support social justice and environmental sustainability?
So Tom, again, the question was, how do the investment and lending policies that we have support social justice and equality?
And environmental sustainability.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Thanks, because I'm not hearing the question, so I appreciate it. I'm sorry, could you read it? So how do our lending programs and policies support social justice?
And environmental sustainability.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry about the double up
here,
but I'm not getting the feed here. So I think on the consumer side, we are continually looking for ways to broaden access to credit. And that's through a variety of programs so we can reach as many people as possible. And that starts with education about how people can think about their credit, how they can learn about their credit score and things they can do. And then we're also doing things about their art. We do have products that allow people to start credit or start building credit as secured credit cards and loans. So there's a stepping stone that we're trying to do in terms of allowing more people to access credit at the BECU. I think oftentimes this question is more geared for on the commercial side, and I believe that we do have a growing small business segment. As I mentioned, we're doing more in the affordable housing front to support folks to provide accessibility to housing. But we're not. There are some programs that we're not necessarily as involved with. But I think it's all about access and supporting small business. We also, I think, another piece, we work with several CDFIs and support their efforts where they have deep relationships into BIPOC communities. Business Impact Northwest is one of them. The majority of their loans are going to BIPOC or female business owners. BECU provides them with a credit or capital so they can lend that out. So I think it's a multifaceted approach, both what we can do to provide more access. How can we work with other partners that have deeper relationships in certain communities? So I think that's an initial piece. I think the other piece that would come into play is also how we're supporting some nonprofits in that space in terms of if they're offering credit too. So.
Okay, back to the inbox here. This next question saying, how is BECU competing to attract talent? There are so many big employers in Seattle.
I can hear Sean, but now I can't hear Solynn. So
Melanie,
go ahead if you want to take that.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Did the audience hear the question? Do I need to repeat it?
Oh, we could repeat it from the inbox. So how is BECU competing to attract talent with so many big employers in the Seattle area?
Yeah, great.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple things. One, I think that being a mission-based organization with a strong purpose to serve our members and community really resonates with a lot of folks, and we find individuals who are especially both mid-career entry, just starting out, as well as late career. It really resonates with across all of those segments, and really wanting to work for an organization where they feel like they can make a difference, that their skills, their knowledge, their ability to affect change and doing something meaningful, like I said, really resonates with a particular population that is just perfect for BECU. So we're very excited and thrilled to have so many folks joining BECU that are mission focused.
All right, back to the community relations inbox. And again, thanks to those who've been writing in from our members here this evening, staying engaged with us. And we're talking about this, people helping people, and how important that is. How are you maintaining the culture at BECU?
So I feel like that's a question both of you could address. But Melanie, why don't we start with you, and then Tom, why don't you back into on that?
Can you repeat the question, because I'm still not getting a repeat from Sean?
So how are you? Can you say it one more time just so I can feed it back to Tom?
Sure, absolutely. How are you maintaining the culture at BECU?
Yeah. So how are we maintaining the culture at BECU?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start, and Tom, if you want to, we can sort of tag team.
Yeah, this would be great.
Yeah. So, maintaining the culture is such an important part of who we are. And you heard Benson talk about our secret sauce, and we don't take that lightly. And I think that, being a humble organization and being an organization who cares deeply about our members, I think about, you heard that, again, have been with the organization for some time, and there's never been, we're just unwaveringly committed to our members. And it doesn't matter what role you're in. If you're in the front lines within our NFCs or the call center, or if you're in accounting or the mailroom or facilities, every role in the organization is always thinking about, how do we make things better for our members? And that true north, I think, just binds us and connects us to that really common purpose that is just so incredible. How about you, Tom?
I agree. I think the approachability, the genuine authenticity of the organization, the humility that we bring goes a very long ways. And I think having that purpose, so when we're having tough conversations, we can point to that and say, what is the right thing to do around that purpose? Does it align with our values and purpose? And I think what we're also trying to do is be very demonstrable in our actions in what we're doing, so our employees have something tangible to grab on, so they can see the culture is real. And so that's everything from our annual day of service, where we have folks that, traditionally before COVID, we'd go out to high schools and teach reality fairs. We have a Being BECU award that celebrates folks that are just outstanding examples of the BECU values. Even events like this, where we can show folks, the Member Summit event, where we can demonstrate to our employees that we're a cooperative, we're owned by all of our members. All of our members have an equal vote, right, regardless of your balance. So I think it's those types of things that we keep going back to point to in terms of showing we are different, in terms of that we're a co-op in the banking space, and reminding people why we're here. I think, when people come to work at BECU, coming from other organizations, they find it refreshing. And I think they like this idea that, in big ways and small, every single day, you're trying to make a difference in someone's life. And that's something we have not lost sight of. And it's something that's on top of our mind every single day, right? We want to make sure we stay very focused on our purpose.
And this next one here, Tom touched on that really well here, just impacting as many lives as possible here. And this one was actually, this question submitted earlier. How is BECU helping low-income members who probably don't qualify to open an account?
So again, the question is, how is BECU helping low-income members who maybe don't qualify for an account? Tom, would you like to try that one on?
You bet. So I think there's two prongs come to mind. Right now, we are actually looking at how we can expand access to more individuals in terms of being able to join the credit union. That's a pilot that is underway right now and is actually very exciting. The other piece is, again, we partner with a lot of organizations and other credit unions. In fact, we actually have a branch of another credit union, Express Credit Union, in our Tukwila branch. This credit union focuses specifically on people that are or underbanked. And we will literally introduce them to the folks at Express if we're unable to help them. So I think those are two really good examples of what BECU is trying to do through BECU as a credit union, but also how we partner with other credit unions that might have more expertise, special products designed for that community.
Okay. We have one on sponsorship we'll get to in a second, but first, since we're moving along here, what are you doing to improve diversity at BECU?
Melanie, why don't you start with that? And again, Tom, the question was, what are you doing to improve diversity at BECU? But Melanie, why don't you kick that off?
Sure. For those who can see all the dogs in the background, I'm very, very sorry. I'm dog sitting for my sister, and I hope
stretching.
That between me and the dogs, there's some entertainment there. So apologies.
Part of being at home, Melanie.
Yeah. They're just relaxing.
Right. It doesn't get any more real than this, right?
It's evening time.
It really is. I'm hoping that the howling doesn't start soon. And so, on a serious note, just the question I think was just, what are we doing to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion within BECU? And did I get that right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. And I think, well, one, we're dedicated to taking an active stance and making changes at the individual level and at the broader cooperative level to support DE&I. We have a highly diverse staff, as you heard Jackie talk about, which reflects the diverse membership and communities. We know we have work to do in senior level roles to fully reflect the communities that we serve, as well as advancing our efforts to hire, engage, advance, and retain a diverse workforce at all levels. We believe that leveraging our differences, whether it be in background, perspective, or thought, is really critical to our success as a cooperative in delivering value and service to our members and the communities we serve. We also believe that racial equity is achievable, and that cooperatives have a vital role to play to advocate for an equitable future. Last summer we had over 1,500 employees come together virtually to listen and learn that I mentioned earlier. And these listening sessions really provided insight into areas of opportunity that led to action and led to us establishing new employee connection groups with over 500 employees participating by the end of the year and continuing to grow today. Respectful workplace guidelines and developing a member code of conduct to ensure all employees feel safe and empowered within their work environments. We also, Jackie touched on that we developed an internal dashboard to keep employees updated on representation at all levels, and the dashboard really providing a transparent communication in regards to not only our areas of opportunities, but really actionable, what actions all employees can take to further an inclusive and equitable workplace. And, this work is underway and evolving, and we look forward to sharing this with all of you as well in the future. We also are developing an educational roadmap that really helps employees understand and account for the ways that systemic bias can show up while assessing and changing internal policies and practices. And even with these accomplishments, we know that our work must continue. We understand that becoming a more equitable cooperative requires and demands a long-term commitment, including putting structures at the heart of our strategic and business plans. So more information on our commitment to DE&I can be found in our 2020 annual report on BECU.org as well, and look forward to continuing to share our progress. So thanks so much for asking the question.
And if we stay on this topic as we approach the 1-year anniversary of the death of George Floyd and the recent Derek Chauvin verdict, this question here from the community relations inbox saying, with the important calls for social justice in 2020, what is BECU's role in driving change and what steps are you taking?
So again, Tom, the question is, what is BECU's role in driving change and what steps are we taking given much of the social unrest that has happened around George Floyd and other community issues related around race?
I think when we think about our community work, we are really, I think about some of the words I used earlier. I mean, we have taken a lot more time to listen to BIPOC communities to really better understand their needs and how BECU can better partner with organizations to support their efforts. And I think the Black Community Development Project is just one of those pieces. But I think it's a starting point. I think that we are looking at how we approach all of our giving through a equity lens, and it's uncovering. We're finding new opportunities where BECU can partner with folks to really understand, as I mentioned, really understanding the needs, and to make a difference. And I think that and I will say that we've had a lot of conversation about. We think there's where we're most effective is really at the crossroads of financial well-being and equity, right? And so we don't have answers or can't try to take on everything, but we know in the space when it comes to financial well-being, we know a little bit about that, and we think we can work with organizations that are really trying on the equity front. So what can we do as it relates to financial services in the equity space? So is that, as we talked about, access to accounts, is it access to capital and credit for businesses? How do we help develop entrepreneurs, minority-owned small businesses? So there's all types of angles there at that intersection between financial well-being and equity.
Okay, as we get close to time here, we do have a few minutes left for more questions here. Another one from the community relations inbox. You talk about people helping people. What are you doing to help the homeless?
So thinking about people helping people, what are we doing to help the homeless specifically?
So, and I would say we support, I mentioned our work with affordable housing, and I would say that's more around getting people into either affordable apartments or homes. But I think most of our efforts are through our work with nonprofits that we support. We understand that housing and shelter is kind of one of those pieces of someone's building blocks for financial well-being. So we work with a number of housing nonprofits that both have emergency housing, but they also have longer-term solutions. So you look at folks like Plymouth Housing here in Seattle. You look at folks like Housing Hope up in Everett. You think about over in Spokane, where we're working with some housing agencies, or SNAP, which does a lot of work with homeless groups. So much of that work is through partners. And again, we're looking for how we can support them, not just in check writing, right? How else can we support them to advance their work? And like I said, a lot of these are, organizations that try to look at that full spectrum of housing, right, from emergency shelter up through eventually permanent housing, and that's where a lot of our work goes right now.
Back to the
I'll
inbox.
also throw in just on the we obviously track policy issues. We also support reporting on the homelessness situation in Seattle so people can become more informed. We're partners with the Seattle Times on their homeless project reporting, which is more like a public radio approach to reporting. We can't drive the agenda or the topics, but we think it's important that the community is aware of what drives this problem and what potential solutions or should be looked at to kind of spark that conversation.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Tom. I think we have time for one more question.
Okay. And this one comes in from the inbox saying, do you plan to bring the employees who are currently working from home back to the office?
Melanie?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. And right now we're currently assessing exactly that. And part of the assessment includes taking a look at each individual role. As I mentioned, a number of over 70% of our population is working remotely full time. So we're really being thoughtful about looking at individual roles. Does it make sense for those roles to continue to work remotely? What is our employee preferences around wanting to continue to work remotely or come into the office, sort of a hybrid of 1 to 2 days a week? And so that's part of the assessment that is currently underway. And so most likely we'll most likely move towards some kind of hybrid work environment as we work through this over the coming months. So stay tuned.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that about wraps up our time. Melanie, Tom, and Sean, huge thank you for contributing and participating in this session. I hope a lot of folks learned from this. That wraps up our session for this evening. If you have questions that weren't addressed, or if you didn't have a chance to submit, you can still email the community relations inbox at communityrelations@becu.org. We'll put the email in the chat screen so you have it. And there will also be a survey below. You can find it by scrolling down the page. Please take a moment, really take a moment to give us some really solid feedback, especially in this virtual environment since it's new for us. So with that, thank you for attending. We'll see you in another session, and have a good evening.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
I'm a big fan of trying to get outdoors as much as possible. My fiance and I love to go mountain climbing and camping and hiking all over the Pacific Northwest, out to the Olympics, down to Mount St. Helens. We're actually going to be getting married on top of Mount Adams later on this year.
I run a micro soccer league for 4 to 9-year-olds. We have about 200 kids signed up as part of our program, split into 27 teams, and just seeing all those kids out there on Saturday mornings playing soccer games just really brings a smile to my face.
Started rock climbing, snowboarding. Next will be skiing. Just really being outdoors and spending time with the family and my granddaughter, my pride and joy.
Listen to a lot of audiobooks. My wife and I just started gardening in the last year when we moved into our new apartment. So we have a lot of houseplants and a lot of plants on our porch now. So we've quite got the green thumb.
My favorite thing to do when I'm not at work is take my mom to shopping and also able to spend time with my sister.
I have 2 daughters, so it's great to go to the park with my wife and 2 daughters or to the zoo. Spending time with friends as our vaccinations get in line. I love going to Mariners games. I've been lucky to go to 4 games this year so far, which is awesome.
When I'm not working, I like to spend my time with my family. I like to volunteer to our church at least, to at least give back to the community, and then at the same time, I also like caring for people, caring for myself, so I go to spa.
Yeah, so outside of work, I enjoy spending time with my wife and daughters. We live in Gig Harbor, so we like to get down to the harbor quite a bit, do a little kayaking, canoeing, paddle boarding. We've even gotten to the point that we have 2 dogs. One of our dogs enjoys paddle boarding. We got a little life vest for the dog.
So spending time with the family outside of work, which BEC enables me to do, it gives me a work-life balance. So I'm able to work and also spend time with my family.